Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for a new World Chess Championship. Now you might be wondering, Levy, I thought we already decided this. Magnus just defeated Nepomniachtchi. Yes. Well, in chess, there's something known as a triple crown. Arguably a quadruple crown, but that's not on the thumbnail. There is also the Rapid and Blitz World Chess Championships, which are generally held after Christmas. Happy holidays if you're celebrating, and if not, well, in the previous Guess the Elo episode, I called you a grumpy, crappy person. You're not. You're wonderful. Some of you are working, some of you are just not celebrating at this time of year, and that's completely fine. We are currently in days 1 and 2 of the World Rapid Championship. It is an open tournament, basically, style, and everybody plays everybody. There's 13 rounds of Rapid over 3 days, and then there's Blitz. And today, I'm going to take you through some of the games. I wasn't home yesterday. I was on vacation. So you got Guess the Elo. First appetizer game is between Alexandra Kosteniuk and Polina Shuvalova from Russia, both players actually. They are playing on the women's side. There's an open and a women's side. As always in these things, y'all can have a discussion in the comments and open that Pandora's box. I'm just gonna show you some awesome chess. We're gonna try to get through a lot of games. There are 6 games. You can go look at the timestamps if you want to find Magnus's, and I'll yell at you. So we have an Italian between Kosteniuk and Shuvalova, and a maneuvering one. We have d3, knight to f6, a4. So Kosteniuk trying to take some space on the queen side early on. You're actually going to see a lot of that, like a4, a5. No other, like, you see, if 500s play chess like this, you tell them not to, but if they do it, you're like, oh, okay, refined chess play. Now both players will castle. And in general, the question for white is whether or not you're going to expand on the queen side, the center, at what point you're going to trade off this very powerful bishop, which is obviously going to dip back there and maintain pressure on this diagonal. That happens immediately. And it turns out that after some development, Kosteniuk decides to expand in the center after all, which makes a lot of sense because e4 is very well protected against any sort of knight, queen, rook action. And it's not so easy for black to move the queen side either because you've put your pawn here. But the problem with putting your pawn there is that your rook has to stay on a1. So bishop to d7, h3, g6, maybe making a little up, moving forward with the king, seeing what's going to happen on the king side, not doing anything in the center or the queen side yet because white does have a bit of a nagging bind. Queen to c4, and now b4. All right, but Shuvalova doesn't spend a whole lot of time like doing nothing. She tries to strike back on her own with the move g5. By the way, I might have not mentioned this, so a lot of these games in Rapid are more decisive because Rapid is 15-minute chess. I probably should have introduced that in the first minute of the video, but if you had the patience to make it 2 minutes and 40 seconds, and let me know in the comments below. b5. So it's 15-minute chess with 10-second bonus, b5. And Kosteniuk is doing a nice job of maintaining the center pressure. Like, these pawns have just been staring at each other with guns the entire game. And the queen side is where Kosteniuk decides to finally break through. And we have ed4, cd4, and rook a7. So rook a7 is defending the queen side a little bit, but now Kosteniuk is expanding in the center and on the queen side. And black hasn't really done a whole lot. In fact, I'm not sure a black piece has crossed the middle line, except for pawn takes d4, which doesn't count, right? So knight e7, knight to d4, c6. Shuvalova is trying to fight back a little bit. Bishop a4, and she does. She fights back in the center. The thing is that now, after bishop takes d7, we have a total tactical shootout. D takes c4. Queen's hanging, bishop's hanging, rook's hanging. What's worth the most? The queen, but then the bishop's hanging after that. Queen c3, very sneaky move. If you play knight takes e6, kabam! Double check with queen and knight, and then you lose your queen. Keep an eye on that knight e6, because a few moves later, when it looked like maybe black was actually fighting back and sort of getting out of trouble, yeah, it was Kosteniuk who uncorked a nasty move right here. It seems like she can't make, easy progress forward. Her bishop is pinned to her queen. This knight is potentially, like, gonna get tangled to the queen and everything. This rook's a little offside, for sure. That I don't know what that rook is doing. But, yeah, here Kosteniuk played, kabam. That was quite a beauty. I mean, that move is just very aesthetically pleasing. Just shove the knight forward. If takes, then bishop takes e6, you lose the rook. But it was also bad. The queen got out of danger, but it didn't matter because she then really shoves the knight down the throat of black. And she's like, no, go ahead, please, take my knight. And when you do, I'm actually not even going to take back on f6. First, I'm going to uncork, kabam! Bishop takes f7 check. I'm going to take this, and when your king runs out, what I'm going to do now is come back and check you. Queen d4 check, and black loses both rooks. And when the dust settled, Alexander Kosteniuk had 2 rooks versus 2 horses, and the game did not proceed any further, and black resigned. And I'm showing this because Kosteniuk is on 7.5 points. Like, she, when I last checked, she's 7.5 out of 8. She is mowing down the field. I'm so excited I bit my own, like I somehow got my own hair in my mouth. Just a quick aside in case you needed that information. The women's side, though, is actually kind of nuts because there's so many players that you might have never even heard of. There's a lot of players with ratings that are like in the 2000s or something like that because they just don't play a lot of Rapid. This actually happens a lot in World Rapid Championships. Like a lot of the Indian players are rated like 2100, even though they're like 2600 GMs because they don't play Rapid. They play classical chess. That's very fun to see. Now, moving on to the open section, we just have absolute pandemonium here, completely insane games. I'm going to try to get through them and not have you here for a crazy amount of time. This game between Duda, who's 2800 Rapid, by the way, and Jobava, who has been crushing it, was a Queen's Gambit accepted, and a bit of an obscure variation with the very early bishop to g4. I've actually played this with black. I generally do not play this anymore, but Jobava's better than me, so he can get away with it. And the reason I don't play it anymore is because white has this move bishop b5, which I'm just not fond of at all. But Duda doesn't play it. He plays a3, which is very recreational. I don't know. I've never seen a3 in my life, but he's Duda, so I have to believe him. And remember, this is being held in Warsaw. Warsaw? I don't know. Polish people, how do you say Warsaw? I say Warsaw, which is probably wrong. But Duda's the hometown favorite. a3, a6, and g4. And Duda goes and just hunts down the bishop pair. He knows what he likes. Bishop d2, okay. I mean, all right, I guess. Now we have e5, d5, knight back to e7, and here comes Duda, initiative forward, g5. Knight comes to d7, because obviously it was under attack, and here comes queen g4. Okay, knight jumps to f5, where it's nicely standing. Obviously, can't really kick it out, because it's going to transfer into the middle and be very annoying. Bishop e7, and now Duda castles long. Because obviously you're not going to get short castle here, and you're also not going to short castle this way. If you short castle, you're going to get completely crushed. So, knight comes to d6, standing very nicely. Black is very defensive and kind of transferring his knights around, but white has a very, good position. But Jobava says, well, you castled early, so b5. Hi, I'm going to attack you. At this point, Duda plays one of the most absurd moves I've ever seen in my life, and it's the top engine move, and that move is king c2. Which I cannot even begin to explain to you. I mean, I guess I can, you prevent the knight from coming forward, maybe you want to go b4, kick the... I don't know. I don't know what the hell the point of king c2 is. I don't. But it's the top engine move, but I don't understand it. Now, knight to a2. Okay, so the king's just wide open on the c-file. Queen d7, bishop g4, and yet, his pieces dance on both sides, and despite the king standing in the open, it's +3. Duda is just +3 in this position. Rook b6, bishop c3. And now we kind of see why it's +3. White's pieces are simply dominating. Simply dominating. This rook is never going to get into the game because this king is never getting anywhere. Unless you, walk the king over and somehow... King's never going anywhere. You can't castle. You're going to get your head chopped off, right? So we have b4. Jobava just trying to do what he can. Bishop e5, ba3, ba3. Whoa. We said he can't castle. h5. It's mate. I mean, boom, boom, boom. He's going to get mated, right? Rook takes... All right, Badur sacks the rook for the knight, and it's simply +6. But it's +6 with perfect play. For example, Duda has to play queen d5, which he finds. And Badur plays knight takes e3. Check. The idea being that after takes, queen g4, and you're still dancing around. Now here, h6 is +7. Somehow your king survives all the checks, you're winning. But Duda takes on g6 instead, and now it's only +2. Queen f5 check, e4, queen takes g6, and now somehow the black king is not getting mated, and it's actually white's king who moved out early. That is bishop f6. Oh my god. If you take with a pawn, what happens here is you get completely smashed on the g-file, right? But Jobava doesn't do that. He plays bishop d6, bishop d4, knight e4, and now, I mean, Duda goes from attacking black's king to guarding his own. Rook e8, king b3, knight g5. Wait a minute. Who is responsible for guarding the king? None of the white pieces know. Is it the queen, the bishop, the rook? Nobody knows. Bishop c3, rook b8. The king's on a2 now. But here comes knight e4. The black pieces are pissed off. They're going to try to get to the king. King a1. And wait a minute. I mean, it's over. Black is winning. Now it's black who's just completely winning here. Queen hits on c3. The king is stuck in the corner. Queen d3, that's it. I mean, just, okay, rook b3 is fine. Queen h7, king f8, queen h8, king e7, check, bishop e5. The game's over. If you play rook c3 here, this is just a draw, though, because you can't take the queen, and it's perpetual. So Jobava has to now be precise. He has to guard against queen c7. He can do this. Queen d6 wins for black. But he plays queen e6, and queen takes e7 out of nowhere, sacrificing the queen to take the queen with check, and then take the rook. And now, after some more, gameplay, this is just a draw. So even though the bishop can push and the two pawns are going, and actually it's white who can potentially be better here, the game ends on move 70 with a draw. Because the pawns of black are just, completely insane game. Like, what, how can I not show this, right? How can I not show this? And on move 70, it was an official draw. Both sides could have just won the game. They chose not to, but they're both having incredible events. Both of them, played against Magnus and everything. I mean, they're just crushing it. So, super, super entertaining game. Now, the next storyline of this tournament is, actually, this game has two storylines. Number one, Levan Ranyan, for the first time, playing under the American flag, I think. He completed his whole transfer to the US. And Nodirbek Abdusatorov, the talented player from Uzbekistan, 17 years old, has been melting people. He beat Fabiano. Let's see how he holds up in a battle against Levan Ranyan, and whether Levan can stop the Phenom. Levan, principled man. Watch the Gotham London video before the tournament, got inspired, plays himself a London. Very principled response here. Main line, completely normal. Now, let's see what black does. Will he play e6? Will he develop his bishop? Okay, bishop to g4. Very normal stuff. c3. And now, generally, white will try to play queen to b3 and target that bishop on g4. So we have e6, queen b3. And here there are two lines. Queen c8 is very nice, simple, and solid, but there is the sexy, modern bishop to d6, seemingly blundering the b7 pawn. But what black says here is, listen, you want my pawn so bad, you can take it. But I'm going to get a raging initiative. So, for example, queen takes b7, bishop f4, and even though the king has to move out of check, the game is still a dogfight. So what happens? g3. Now we have bishop back to d6. In this position, you can also play this and kind of force white to go backwards, but why would you do that? Bishop pair is good, right? Knight e5, rook b8, and now we see kind of the problem. The problem with this line for white, as good as it might be, is the fact that you got a lot of open lines, and you're kind of slow in your development. So f3, bishop f5, knight b3, and now Nodirbek plays h5. And that's how you know it's going to be a fun game. Now, in this position, Levan can play long castle, which is just a lunatic move. He can play bishop to e2, bishop to d3, but he goes here. King directly in the middle says, I'm gonna go outside, actually. I'm good. I'm gonna go outside with no mask. All right, I'm good. Actually, I'm gonna take a breath. I don't care. All right, y'all can't stop me. And everyone's like, bishop takes e5, d5, knight d7, rook e1. But now rook b6, and even though it looks like at least the pawns will survive for now, where's the queen going? Is it going to a4? Uh-huh. Who's gonna guard this? Queen a3. Okay, well, that's check. That's not complicated. f4. Fine, fine, fine. f4, f4. Okay. Black to play and be a gangster. All right, you got queen, rook, knight, bishop, 6 pawns. Who are you going to move? The king again. Let's walk the king over here so we can bring the rook. That's exactly what we're doing. You can take h5. Levan, you can take h5. I'm good. You sure. By all means. You think I care if I'm down 2 pawns? I got 5 more. All right, that's called being an optimist. Now we have d4, cracking open the center. If knight takes d4, rook takes b2. If cd4, queen c2. Here we go. g4. Here comes dc3 check. bc3, queen c4. That bishop can be taken. Yes, absolutely. Can absolutely take this bishop. However, queen takes f4 check. That queen is mad. She's about to take everything. Knight e5. For a moment, for a brief moment, Nodirbek Abdusatorov is down a full piece. In fact, not only is he down a full piece, that piece can now come back and help protect the king with moves like bishop e2. But the problem is, there's one problem in the white position. What is it? This guy. And the fact that the queen is God knows where. The most powerful piece is not attacking or defending. What the hell is she doing? He's going full Ben Simmons on us. All right, out of that, no one can get in touch with the queen. All right, so now we have rook to f2 trying to protect the second rank. Knight to d3 hitting everything. All right, we have rook e2, but he's not even interested in taking the rook. Do you think that this rook is worth taking? Maybe in the future, but not right now. Queen c3. The knight is better than the rook. The rook's worth like 2.5 points. Nobody wants that stupid rook. It's like a car with no wheels. All right, bishop takes f7. And now, rook to d8 played. Who's gonna guard the king? Rook d2 check here. And now the queen's lost. The queen chilled on a3 the whole game and got taken in the crossfire. Tragic. King takes f2. And when all the dust settles, Levon's just got knight and bishop for the queen. And now all Nordjorbeck has to do, look at that move. Knight can't guard and attack at the same time. King gets hunted down into the middle of the board. Nordjorbeck very cool, calm, and collected. And in this position, Levon resigned. He resigned because this pawn's gonna come down and the queen's gonna just destroy everything. Nordjorbeck Abdusattorov has 7 out of 9 after 9 games. This dude is destroying this tournament. And tomorrow, he's got a big matchup in round 10 out of 13, which I won't spoil. Next game I have for you, we've got a return guest, Jan Krzysztof Duda versus Jan Nepomniachtchi, who just played we played some interesting games recently against a very good player. You might have heard of him. Jan plays e4, and the meme is that actually in this event, Duda has been playing Magnus's prep. He played it a few times, and I'm not going to talk too much about the nuances of the Spanish, but this position was seen in the World Championship. Rook to b8. This rook b8 idea, d6, rook e8. So Duda is playing like Magnus against Jan. Crazy stuff, all right? Crazy stuff. And I'm wearing a blue silk shirt with polka dots on it. Did you see them? Do you like my shirt? See, if you made it this far in the video, now I'm breaking the fourth wall a little bit. You can let me know if you like it. Tell me if you hate it. No, I'm not gonna pin any hate comments though about my shirt. I gotta pin like genuine angry people. A takes b5, a b5, d3, d6, h3, and now h6. Very similar to the positions we saw in the World Championship. Will Jan try to play in the center? No, he actually plays in the center with his knight, not with the pawns. Knight c3, knight d5, we have takes, bishop d7. Let me just tell you something right now. You gotta have some serious, bravery to play the prep of the World Championship against the guy who was involved in it. So Duda's a brave guy. We have bishop d2, because Jan's gonna know all this stuff, right? Bishop f6, and now here comes the rook on the queen side. Knight e7. So this coordination of pieces here is interesting. We're going for this bishop. So the bishop goes away, and Duda offers an exchange. And here, Jan plays knight to h2. You know what the point of knight to h2 is? Has nothing to do with the knight. Queen h5. All sorts of nasty threats here. Duda has to be very careful. He offers a trade of bishops. Jan plays knight g4. Queen to d8. He brings the queen, which apparently is bad, and allows Jan to take and play rook a1. This giving up of the a file is a big mistake, because now white has the free reign over there. White can play rook a7, bishop a5. Attack looks very juicy on the queen side. So, Duda plays bishop g5, trying to get the bishop out of the scope of the knight and to trade it with the bishop. The problem is that actually that trade is good for white anyway. So you play a move that you think is good for you, it's not. g3, preventing knight to f4. Actually, the white queen is completely trapped. If this move was possible, the queen would be lost. It's not possible, though. So that's why g3 was played. So knight to f8. Knight e3, and let's not forget the rook is on the queen side for a reason. So you ain't getting hit from one side, two sides, pressure on your center too. g6, queen comes back, queen c7, and knight g4, and we're looking for knight h6, knight f6. So obviously black should play king g7. But Duda says, pause. I'm not going to play king g7. I'm going to ask you what you're doing with your rook. Now your rook's got to go. And Jan's like, you do so my rook's got to go. Or what? What are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do about what? My rook's got to go? For real? If you take my rook, you lose a guard here. So check, here, check, here, check. You come up, you get mated. So here, here, and you would lose your rook. I sack my rook and my knight, but I win both of them back. And more. Stupid. Bing bong. What are you going to do about it? Rook b6. By the way, I don't think that interaction actually occurred, but I'm putting into words all the silence you see in all those videos of chess players playing, or the coughing. That's what's going on in their head. Bing bong. What do you want to tell Joe Byron right now? Rook b6. Side Talk NYC. Look them up. They're very funny. Rook b6 is just savage. And Duda moves out of the way. This comes anyway. And let me tell you something right now, guys. Jan Nepomniachtchi, after 9 games, also undefeated. He has 7 out of 9, and he's just, I mean, he won this game with 16.5 minutes on the clock. It's a 15-minute game. He had 16:40 at the end. Do you get what I'm saying? This dude is crazy. It's good to see him back playing some awesome chess. Next game I have for you is a game between Hans Niemann and Daniil Dubov. You gotta put Dubov in here because he's a former World Rapid champion. Gotta put Hans Niemann in here because he's crushing it lately. Win, lose, draw, it doesn't matter. This guy has gained like 400, 300 points in like a year and a half. So he's doing really well. Dubov also has a really funny interview about Rapid Chess where he says that Rapid is in the middle of Blitz and Classical. So in Blitz Chess, you can go party all night and then come play and you don't care. Classical's the opposite. And he says that in Rapid Chess, you know, he doesn't know if he should go like party all night or sleep all night or think about with whom he will sleep all night. That's literally what he said, except in Dubov voice. So Niemann versus Dubov begins with a Slav defense. I mean, fitting, Daniil. And we have something known as the slow Slav. So, you know, driving a Lada, maybe a Zaporozhets. So bishop g6, queen b3, queen c7, and another case of a guy getting the bishop pair. It's all men want. It's all men want. All right, they're not thinking about anything else except the bishop pair. Knight d7, rook c1, and Niemann expands on the queen side. Now, the thing is, what black is going to do in the Slav, if you give black the chance, black's going to play e5. That's what black's going to do. So what does black do? He plays e5. Shocker. White expands on the queen side. We have a6, we have bishop g2, e4, and h4. The point of h4 is that now the pawn will never be a liability here. Even if you castle, you're not going to get any problems, and the bishop's going to come out this way. Beautiful stuff. So what does Dubov do? Knight f8, transfers the knight back around to the middle of the board. And here, Hans Niemann just really takes a powerful rip of the good stuff and plays king to e2. Yes. I don't know if it's banned in Poland. I don't think he actually did that. But he took a hit of the Bon Cloud. Delayed, modified, and then he proceeded to run the king. But so does black. I mean, in close positions, when both sides have 8 pawns, this stuff is possible. And, you know, both guys are trying to put their king somewhere for the battle that's coming ahead. We have g5. What? Wait, Dubov, are you nuts? HG you can't even take. Right? What? Oh! Remember earlier how I said sometimes rooks are 2.5 points? Aranyan's rook. Well, that bishop was a really powerful bishop. So by doing this, Daniil puts his knights on the light squares and leaves white with 6 out of 7 pawns on the dark squares, which means this bishop bought a house and you can't even look outside. You can't even go outside, let alone look outside. I mean, the bishop is just trapped. Can't go anywhere. In fact, it's so bad, you literally will never be able to move these pawns because they're completely blockaded. This is mean. This is mean. It's almost like Hans sat down and said, I don't like your Balenciaga outfits. And Dubov was like, what? First of all, L. Second of all, you fell off. Third of all, plus ratio. All right? So king to c1, and then Daniil plays a5. a5 is an awesome move. I mean, look at Daniil. He cracks open this side of the board, blockades it, and then strikes. It's a beautiful play. Beautiful. King b1. By the way, engine this whole time is saying 0, 0, 0. Don't watch things with the eval bar. A before bishop before b6. Yes, let's keep it cracking. What's the benefit of moving the A and B pawns? The fact that the queen will go to a7 in the future. More on that later. bc5, bishop c5, bishop c5, dc5. Knight comes around to e5. The blockade is lifted because the horse is about to pull up. Daniil Dubov has the horses in the back. Actually, just one. Knight d3, rook h4. Now, by the way, black also can get mated. Will it happen? I don't know. Depends on what website you're on. The problem is that Daniil is first. The problem is Daniil destroyed the queen side and plays queen a7, and well, he actually doesn't have a mate, but it's bad. Hans is a move away from checkmating him. At least he can say he was a move away from checkmating Daniil Dubov. Now, will Dubov find the knockout? The knockout is actually very interesting. So first, Daniil threatens a repetition of moves, but he doesn't do it, and then he takes, and takes the pawn. So he will now not get mated. He has knight and 5 pawns versus rook and 3. But all his pawns are together. And in all endgames, he is just winning, right? So we have rook b1, queen a6, and the king is still dancing in the middle, but Daniil's king is safe. It doesn't matter if you can check me, because I will just cover up my king with my knight. And yeah, I mean, at some point he coordinates and reroutes the queen to the other side. And I mean, Hans like wants to go forward, but he can't. He's just a little bit short, like, of going forward. Queen f3, and the king gets to safety, but at what cost? Now you start losing all your pawns. And notice how he checks him. He checks him to bait the king to get hit with more checks. And at some point, Daniil went, wait a minute, I'm up mad pawns. Like, I got 3 extra pawns, and 4. 4 extra pawns, and the game ends with the pawns kind of walking together. Just a very nice game from Daniil. I mean, Hans is having a great event. I think Hans has 6 or 6.5 points, but this guy's no joke. And now, folks, you might be wondering, where the hell is Magnus Carlsen? Gotham, I've watched 25 minutes. I gave you the benefit of the doubt. I sat through all the ads that YouTube decided to bombard me with, or not. I watched with ad blocker, I don't know. But where the hell is the world champion? Magnus is the world champion in Classical, Rapid, and Blitz. He's here. It's time to show you a big matchup between Magnus and Alireza Firouzja. Magnus has played and defeated many players thus far in the first 9 rounds, but this is the most interesting matchup, because these guys are number 1 and number 2 in the world. Let's see what we're going to get. e4. Firouzja plays c6, as he has been doing, and Magnus already on move 4 forgets Caro-Kann theory. The best move here is obviously not this. It's knight f3 or h4. That's the 2 main lines. But okay, c4. Now this is the main line. That's how it works when you're the world champion. Like, you know, people look at you as an inspiration. So if you're like at the top of a profession and one day you decide, you know, something about that sport, that's just what they do. So c4, e6, normal. Players develop, and Magnus plays h3. If I had a 700 rated student who played this move, I would yell at them for not developing their pieces. Magnus plays it, I'm like, ooh, I see the idea is actually to play rook h2, g3, f3, rook e2. Wow. That turns out not to be the idea at all. Actually, there is an interesting idea. You're gonna always prevent this bishop from coming forward. So if bishop h5, you always have g4. Just kind of a waiting move. And then Magnus plays b3. I mean, this dude, what is he doing, man? It's like, how does he just get away with this stuff? But we're waiting to see what's going to happen in the game, right? So we have knight f5 from Firouzja. We have bishop e2 developing, bishop b4, Magnus stabilizing. Now both sides castle, and Alireza strikes in the center with f6. Generally in the Caro-Kann, it's c5 or f6, just like in the French. a3, I would like to take your bishop. You can't. Now Magnus here can play b4, bishop c7, c5, but the problem is his center is going to fall apart. So he has to deal with that, right? So what does he do? Takes on d5. Now here, Alireza thought for like half his time, which in this is a lot. 11 down to like 5 minutes. He has a big decision which way he wants this game to go. He can take and keep the pawn structure symmetrical, or he can imbalance the pawn structure, having more of a presence in the center and on the queen side, but this pawn will march through, and it's going to be a race of chicken or the egg, okay? Either black is going to win this pawn or white's going to win the game because the pawn is going to get through and he's going to support it with everything he has. So he takes with the c pawn. Takes, rook c1, and now Alireza plays knight h4. So his initiative is not done. He is hanging around here with the queen, the rook, the bishop, maybe this bishop, maybe this knight. Magnus says, go away. Go. And you cannot go to c7 because I have this and that. So he says, go away. Bishop d8. And Magnus says, all right, let me look around. What's weak in your position? Oh, I found it. The fact that you're playing me, that's already a weakness. But actually, e6 is weak. So hi, how are you going to defend this? Can't push it. You're going to lose this. Can't even, I mean, you're not going to do something passive. I mean, worst comes to worst, I'm going to do this or something. So you need to be active. Okay, bishop f5, great. I'm going to get rid of that bishop. The more pieces of yours that I can trade, the less chance you have of attacking me. The more pieces of yours I can trade, the more your weaknesses will be pronounced in the game, right? So now queen e2, rook e1, etc. Knight a4, knight c5. So what does Magnus do here? Queen e2. Gotham called it. Also saw the game live. That's why he knows the moves. Knight to f8. And now Magnus has a choice. He can go the scenic route to c5, or he can go to the middle of downtown and go to the market. And he chooses to go knight to d1, knight to e3, right? Alireza here can preemptively back up. I mean, the engine was saying all sorts of wild stuff. It was telling him to, like, leave, but it's tough to do that, right? So Alireza felt like the game was moving forward, so he played bishop b6 and hung around. He threatened queen takes h3. The problem with this, with all these different ideas, is that the pawn is not worth as much as a rook. So we have this, and suddenly Magnus is taking over the initiative because this rook cannot go back home. It can't. It's going to have to either take the long way or get trapped. Rook g3, threatening queen h3 anyway. King just walks up, says, "What's up? You want to fight?" Like what? It's like the mob boss, unarmed, walking up to the villain or the good guys. You know, walks up like, "What are you going to do? I got shooters all over the place. Doesn't matter that I'm unarmed. I got all sorts of artillery lined up." Queen f2 traps the rook, by the way. So time to get out. All right. Magnus plays knight to g4. Queen comes out. Everybody's running back. But Alireza's still consolidating. The game is anything but over. For Magnus to win this game, he's gonna have to expand with his pawns. That's the only way Magnus can win. So, will he be able to do it? Rook to c3. Rook to c8. Let's trade rooks. Okay. Let's do it. Queen takes c8. Knight to e5. Look at how strong my knight is. If you take, I'm gonna combine all my pawns, and then my bishop's gonna be mega OP, which is an official chess term. Rook to f6. Rook c1. g3. All right, that's a baby move, but obviously we're going to play g4, g5 at some point, right? Rook f5. Oh, it's actually Alireza who says, "If you're not going to attack me, Magnus, allow me to do the honors." And he throws a haymaker, right? So Magnus says, knight g4. All right, I'm going over here. King g7 protects. Knight to e3. What are you going to do with this rook? You got two choices. Okay, we're going to go all the way back. But now here comes f5. And even though I told you a long time ago this is what Magnus had to do, he finally gets around to doing it. In this position, the computer recommends one of the most savage, disgusting moves I've ever seen in my life. Knight to g6. That is absurd. To lose the knight to get in here and take the bishop. That is insane. That is a crazy, crazy move. Alireza doesn't play that. He plays queen d7. The problem with queen d7 is that now white is just in time to play rook f1, but not just rook f1, holding the tension. King g2 to step out of any pins. So now white's position is perfectly poised to open up. And you might ask what this bishop's doing, right? You might like, that bishop hasn't moved for a long time. That bishop makes the most clutch move of this entire game. As Alireza tries to deal with this kind of mounting pressure, f6. Now Magnus is up a pawn, but Alireza is creating a little bit of counterplay, a little queen h5. It's time for this bishop to make the most clutch move of the entire game. How do you deal with an attack from the center to the right side? By playing this move. That is a beautiful defensive and offensive resource, hitting this with tempo, understanding that there is nothing here. The king walks to f3, there's no more checks, and if you take on a3, then you can't even move the queen at all, because this, I trade off one of your most powerful pieces, I completely negate all of your pressure, I'm also Magnus Carlsen. I'm not, but that's what he's thinking. I doubt Magnus Carlsen actively thinks I'm Magnus Carlsen, but you know. So queen c8, we go down the c-file, knight e5, and I mean, Magnus's pieces are just beautiful. Notice how they dance from left to right, in the middle, to the right, back to the middle, like a boxer, right? Like a boxer. The footwork is perfect, and Magnus, ultimately, the biggest asset of his position is the king side. That f-pawn, a thorn, making sure nothing can move. Magnus defends the king, doesn't even take any offerings, and ends the game by transferring the knight yet again, and Alireza resigns because f7 is coming, queen e5, and Magnus Carlsen did defeat Alireza. Magnus Carlsen has beaten Alireza a lot in Rapid and Classical. He has. The record is actually like, it's like 14-4, maybe 3. So Alireza is awesome, but he's going to have to work a little bit. And I cheer for him every time. I mean, I'm cheering for him in this game. I want him to get that win. I want him to start building back that momentum of the generational kind of gap between the two. But for the meantime, after 9 rounds of the World Rapid Championship, Alireza Firouzja is, I think, on 6.5 out of 9 with a loss to Magnus. Magnus Carlsen is in first place. 7.5 points by himself, being trailed by Nodirbek, Jan Nepomniachtchi, and Alexander Grishuk, whose games we will probably cover tomorrow. Guys, I want to show you all these games. There are so many amazing games. There's blunders all over the place. Maybe tomorrow I will just include a segment of the most ridiculous blunders, but it's enough. It's been 35 minutes. I love you all so much for sticking around this long, and I will see you all tomorrow for the final day, and we will crown first, second, and third place in the World Rapid Championship.